Good evening and welcome into another edition of Star V Sundays alongside Joe Bulovas. I'm your host, Billy Derrick, and man, we're fired up, ready to go. Just like a lot of other Vandy fans are. It's probably going to be one of the more fun episodes to have, but it gets a lot more fun these next few weeks if this team keeps winning. But we are on remote location today, and I will blame myself for a few mistakes along
Yeah,
the way. But
Billy's out here undercutting the foundation for a second week in a row.
But hey, we're here. We're talking Vanderbilt football, and we'll be back in person hopefully next week, recapping that win over Bama. So we'll be locked and loaded next week. But we're here for the next 45 minutes to an hour talking Vanderbilt football with you guys. Again, we want to hear your comments, your questions about yesterday's game, and we'll also touch on, of course, the big showdown Vanderbilt and Alabama coming up next Saturday, 2:30 on ABC. We'll talk a lot more about that one typically than we usually would in a lot of these episodes when usually it's a recap show, but we will preview a little bit of that, especially with some connections there with Joe Bulovas. But guys, before we do anything, I want to tell you again about Bulovas Wealth Management of Raymond James. There's one thing we all share. It's that our lives are all unique. At Raymond James, they believe that's worth celebrating because financial planning isn't just about numbers and figures. It's about creating the life that you envision. So whether you're building a future or preparing for retirement, Joe over here, just to the right of the screen, can guide you each step of the way, all while following a plan that's uniquely yours. That's life well planned. To learn more, call Joe 615-645-6742 or log on to that beautiful, clean website, raymondjames.com/Bulovas Wealth Management. Raymond James and Associates Incorporated, member New York Stock Exchange, SIPC. Joe, how you doing, man? That was another ho-hum win for the Commodores, and they're 5-0 headed into, I think, is the biggest game in Vanderbilt football history. Again, the coach mindset. You know, you're gonna come at me with that, saying, "Hey, it's week to week, right? Just go 1-0 each week." But man, it's gonna be fun this week, and the Commodores get it done yet again.
Yeah, man. Obviously, you got a big one on deck here, and it takes everybody. Everybody's got to kind of look themselves in the mirror and stay focused and be where their feet are. But Alabama's had this game scheduled. Mark the calendar. Vandy same way. So it's the week is finally here. We knew it was going to come, down the pipeline, and I'm just glad that Vandy's been handling business the way that they have. I will say though, man, that first half last week, I thought Vegas might have gotten to our refs that game. I was
Yeah.
sitting on pins and needles, like, holy mackerel, something is fishy here. Now, obviously, things panned out in our favor, but at the same time, oh man, to be quite honest, I hadn't seen something like that in a long time. Now, things got better as the game went on, but it seemed like every big time momentum type steering play, like block
Mm-hmm.
punt, muff punt, or whatever that situation was, turnovers with that, the one that was in the end zone, the punt for would have been for a
Yep.
safety. Man, so that tells me two things. One, it was a little sloppy on our end for the officials to be able to make those calls. And I think everybody would probably agree in the building, like, hey, we could have cleaned up a few things, especially
Yeah.
on downs that we can't afford to have that, right? They're pivotal moments in the game. They steer the momentum going forward, but it also says they have a lot of resolve of being able to flush those plays and move on. And that's the mark of a really mature team. I've been saying it for a long time. This team is really, really mature, and you have a lot of older guys who have played for a long time. Might not have been at Vandy, but these guys have played together a long time. And so they know how to flush things and come back and step back into the fire. But I was really impressed by the way that we were able to overcome penalties. Obviously, that has got to be a priority against
Mm-hmm.
Alabama and the bigger teams that we start playing from here on out. I mean, every game from here on out is tough. But so we got to clean that up. I was impressed with the way that they could battle. In all senses, I think the defense. It wasn't a perfect game on offense or defense, but we did what we needed to do to win. And
Mm-hmm.
great teams find ways to win. Vandy had to find it a different way this time compared to the other wins that we've had so far. So again, you're going to be tested. This week's going to be a big test. LSU is going to be a big test. Texas is going to be a big test. So just step up to the plate and be ready to take a cut, take a hack, and short-term memory loss. So I thought it was really good. I was encouraged by the morale of the team rather than the way that we won. I was encouraged by the physicality, the competitive spirit that we played with more than anything.
Alan on YouTube, first comment, miss your south end zone set. It was actually in the north end zone, but I do too.
Yeah, I miss it too, Alan. Billy's doing a lot of different great things right now, so he's getting pulled every which direction. So every now and then we accommodate and find a different avenue. But yeah, we'll be back there. We're trying to mix it up a little bit. We might, Billy and I were shooting the breeze about potentially doing the team room. That's always a great setting. And maybe the indoor facility, maybe even the south end zone. Being a
south end zone would be cool.
Sometimes you can get into places that maybe the common public can't. So we're trying to get an idea of kind of do something different each time. So I think it'd be a really cool backdrop, and give you guys a little insight of hey, how the facilities are looking now. So
south end zone
if you can.
Yeah, south end zone would be awesome. I actually got to see it for the first time, at least the view from the south end zone.
Billy gets to go to all these cool places because he's in the media. I don't get to do that. I haven't even been to south end zone. I'm not cool enough.
No, hey, you were the north. We were hanging out in the north end zone for the game, so that was cool. And credit to you, Joe. That was awesome. But the south end zone is a really nice view. And you've got the SRM suite, which is not directly behind the field goal, but if you look, and it's pretty easy to notice, it's got that gold color on the outside, the gold exterior, which is a nice look. But I mean, it's a different feel than the north end zone. You're a little bit closer to the action, and there aren't as many as Joe's lights flicker off.
Man, trying to get the lights adjusted in this place is like having to throw a football 200 yards. It's just not going to happen. It doesn't matter what you do, but you can be Ivan Drago throwing a football, but it's not going to go 200 yards. That's me trying to get the lights going in here. It's never going to be perfect, but you know what? I guess I'll be in somewhat darkness because all four of them just dimmed at once. I was like, here we go again.
No, you look fine. You look fine. But yeah, the south ends would be cool. Maybe we'll try out what that would look like. But Joe, I want to jump right into the game just like you did there, and kind of run through a little bit of that starting point. Some of the mishaps. Obviously, Utah State got off to a nice start. Bryson Barnes led them right down the field. They took an early 7-0 lead in the first quarter. Yet another slow start for Vanderbilt's defense. And I want to park there, Joe, because we haven't touched on this a ton. I mean, we've seen these slow starts. I think we even saw it against Charleston Southern. I could be mistaken there, but we saw it in Blacksburg. Obviously, really a slow first half, and they end up turning the tide there and scoring 34 in a row. And then in Columbia, without Zaylen Woods' interception, that game could have looked a lot different there, Joe. Carolina was looking to take the 14-7 lead there. You had a slow start. Thought you had another slow start against Georgia State a couple of weeks ago. And then yesterday, we saw the slow start. But Utah State, Joe, I think this is the best offense Vandy's seen so far. Now,
it might have been the best team overall that we saw.
Yeah, you could be right there.
Take away special teams, because if Utah State didn't shoot themselves in the foot a couple times in special teams, and granted, they didn't have to capitalize on that. It was some areas that we did. So it kind of nullified their poor special teams play.
Yeah.
But I thought that was the most complete team I saw on offense specifically. Maybe defense, I can't say that for sure. But overall, that was a really solid team. It was definitely the best offense that I thought we've seen. And I say that because they do a lot of different motions. So they have a lot of different pass sets. They move guys all over the place. They show a lot of different formations. So it's actually very similar to what we run on offense, as Billy takes a nice swig out of this red Solo cup. But no, it was probably the most complete team from an offensive perspective. You had some pretty big guys and a bunch of athletes on that team that could make some things happen, which we saw. Their offense got in a rhythm. Their defense didn't get in a rhythm against our offense, so I was pleased with that. It's really encouraging when you have a defense that has to go against something similar to ours every single week that
Yeah.
they still didn't really stand a chance in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
Our punter finally got some work today.
Yeah.
On Saturday, Nick finally got a couple punts off and sent them to the moon. So here for the specialist. Brock knocked down a couple field goals. So nice job there. This long snapper, Durham, he didn't snap it over the holder's head or the punter's head. So nobody knows his name still. That's still good. Everybody's doing good, man. Everybody's doing good. But obviously there's a lot of penalties we got to clean up. But I would say this is definitely the hardest offense that we may play it for a while.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I talked about that coming into the game, and I kind of thought about, okay, maybe South Carolina, but South Carolina, even when Sellers was healthy, was struggling. That they weren't really on good terms. It was kind of confusing what they were trying to do on offense, and then Sellers goes down. So definitely that was the toughest offense Vandy has faced up to this point. I was impressed with Bryson Barnes. That's a good quarterback, Joe. That's a guy. And I was asked about this. What about Barnes? Somebody might have put this.
Too. He got knocked down a good bit and came right back up.
Yeah, somebody might have mentioned this on the board. He doesn't have eligibility left, so no, I don't think that would be a target for Vanderbilt. But a type of guy like that certainly would.
Right.
He had some big runs, and they took a 14-7 lead in that first quarter, and the penalties started to bite Vandy. They ended up having, I think they had 5 penalties for 55 yards in the first half, and then 8 penalties for 91 yards total. And yeah, they weren't all good calls. There were definitely some bad calls in there.
Yeah.
But Joe,
it was at really crucial times, man. That's where, like I've given that analogy before. It's like a running back who keeps putting the ball on the ground in practice, and it finally comes up in the game, and you got nobody to blame but yourself. We can't make it even close in those types of situations. When you're about to get off the field, they're punting. The last thing you want to do is extend that drive. That even upstairs, like how the team reacts to that from a mental standpoint, you got to have some mental fortitude as on the defense to go right back out there, knowing that we just stopped them and we got to go do it all again. And they did it. They did a phenomenal job. I'm proud of our defense. Was it perfect? No, not by a long shot. Nobody on the team is going to tell you they played a great, perfect game on defense. But at the same time, I'm really proud of the way that they came back and kept stepping back in the fire, knowing that, hey, we can only control the play in front of us.
Right. And look, you mentioned Vanderbilt's offense, that they responded every time they needed to. Right. And Pavia, right after Utah State takes the lead, he ties it up with a quarterback keeper. And then Joe, Junior Sherrill. I mean,
oh my gosh.
We've talked about him a ton. But
did he have 3 or 4 touchdowns on Saturday?
He had 3 touchdowns. He's now got 5 on the season. Vandy took their first lead of the day at 21-14 with 2 minutes left in the half, in that first half. And then they score again, of course. They get the ball right back, score really quickly. They had 2 touchdowns in, I think, just under 3 minutes, Joe. And a lot of that was Junior Sherrill. It was Pavia to Sherrill, and they were working really quick, and they were doing some up-tempo stuff. Like, that was pretty impressive.
It was really impressive. I mean, when a receiver gets hot like that, chances are that the OC will start, speeding up the pace of the calls and start going hurry up offense or going NASCAR. And that's what you love to see when the offense gets hot like that, and certain receivers, are making guys miss. When you go fast like that, it doesn't allow the defense, one, to sub efficiently, but then also, 2, it doesn't get the right guys in position or the matchup that they want on that guy. So, like, take Junior, for example. If we're going hurry up offense all the way down the field, essentially, or the last 7, call it 50 or so, 60 yards, and we're just, hey, we're hurry up offense, we're going to strike in a heartbeat. It doesn't allow the safety or the corner that they want to have on Junior on him each play. So you get some favorable matchups, especially when you get them in a position or you do a formation that they're not too comfortable with, on how maybe the linebacker will pass it off to the safety or corner to the safety of that guy. And so that's what you saw with Junior, man. He was cooking guys, but he made stuff happen with the ball in his hands too, which we were talking about a few weeks ago of, like, hey, if Junior's going to be that guy that like we're going to rely on the outside, our go guy, if you will, he's got to be the guy that you throw the ball to, even on the screen, and he makes stuff
in
happen.
any
And he's
situation. Yeah.
right, and he's doing that now, man. He's not just a
Right.
deep threat vertical guy. He's an everywhere threat. So he's done a
Yeah.
really nice job and had a phenomenal game, obviously. And Eli's doing a phenomenal job still at tight end. He hasn't had as many touchdowns per se, but he's playing really, really well. He's getting a lot of catches, getting the ball to him a good bit. And my mark of a great tight end is being able to catch in traffic. There's balls that he's catching where his ribs are like fully exposed over the middle. He's not afraid to go two hands up for the ball and go get it and take shots. I mean, there were a couple over the middle that he had three guys just crash down on him. And they were all, hitting him at the same time. So they're really contested catches, and just to hold on to the ball, man. Catch it, hold on to the ball with three guys, head hunting you. Takes a lot, man. So he's done a really phenomenal job.
I mean, look, he that was his best game, and I think he was asked about that after the game. He said he would agree that was his best game in the black and gold. And man, I just can't say enough about him because he, and I asked him this after the game too, like from your journey, from where it began. He was kind of your classic slot receiver, not the biggest guy. He's put on a ton of weight, Joe. He has developed, like you said, in making those contested catches. But it's not just, bubble screens here or there. Like, these are seam routes up the middle, like you said, and making those tough grabs. And there was one in the corner of the end zone, or right in, that was the one to make it 28-14, not necessarily corner of the end zone, but in the front part of that front pylon. And Pavia puts it right there. Their chemistry has been really, really impressive to see. But after that, Joe, Utah State cuts it to 28-21 with 20 seconds left in the first half. Vandy did get a field goal. Pavia had a 33-yard run to put them into range, which was really impressive. I think he left 4 seconds left for Brock, and Brock boots it through. But I do want to go back to the defense because we did have a couple of comments about this. Knox Tootal says, I'm most worried about the pass defense because of how aggressive Vandy has been playing so far. And then Justin.
Knox, how tall are you, man?
Too tall. He's too tall.
Are you too tall?
Yeah. No, who was it? Ed Too Tall Jones? That you remember him? There was a former NFL player, Ed Too Tall Jones. But no, and then like I said, we had another one here from Justin saying the pass defense is our weakness. Look, I've watched a lot of football. Watched a lot of football yesterday, Joe, especially in the SEC. There aren't too many elite pass defenses anymore. It's really hard. It's hard to, because most teams, if you're looking at corners, right, and you're a transfer corner prospect, are you going to go to a team that already has their 4 locked up? Right?
Absolutely.
Probably not. So,
in this day and age, absolutely not. But, it might be a slight joke, but it's like, how much are you going to pay me, and am I going to play?
Exactly. So that's what you're seeing. And I'm not saying this is the case for Vanderbilt because I do think they have pretty good depth there, Joe. I think Marlon Jones was beat on the one that cut it to a touchdown right before the half. We've seen a little bit more of Mark Davis. What's been a little surprising, we haven't seen a ton of Martell Height, honestly, at corner. And I think we knew that because of the receiver aspect of that. And we know about Colby Taylor and Jalen Lackey. I think those guys have been fine. But this was the first game that it was like consistent, like the game in Columbia and then the game in Blacksburg. It was really the first 2-3 drives, and then Vandy was able to settle in. But honestly, Joe, I thought the whole, and they settled in the second half. I want to give them credit, but I did think the whole first half, Vandy was trying to catch their rhythm and catch their feet a little bit, and
they seemed a little on their heels with everything. They were absorbing the punch. They weren't throwing one for their own sake.
And Clark said that after the game. He said, "I didn't like
how he worded it."
He actually did say, he said, "I thought we were on our heels," and when we're on our heels, he said, like, when we're on our heels, like most defenses, you're not going to play well, and you're not going to be, you're not going to be ready. But
so what you were saying, Billy, sorry, keep going.
Well, I was just going to add that Clark said he didn't like the way they ended that first half. But again, that he did thought they settled in. But yeah, look, I was going to go back to, you watch a lot of college football. There aren't too many elite pass defenses. I'm telling you guys that right now.
That's exactly what I was about to add on to.
Yeah.
So, back in the day, you go back to that must be a strong drink there, Billy. I'm just kidding. Lord knows that's water on Sunday, man. But
by the way, KO said Billy's hammered. I am not. This is water. I can promise you that.
Oh man,
that was Joe on Saturday before the game.
Oh golly, absolutely not. But anyways, what I was about to say is when you're if you go back to like 2009 through like call it maybe 2015, 16-ish, that was really before the game had changed of throwing all the time, true deep threats with every offense. And so Alabama was kind of the standard for that on the defensive side of like, hey, when you play a defense like that, it's extremely hard to put up points. You if you put up 21 against them, that was a lot. Now you see, even the game yesterday when Alabama played Georgia, like, it was a kind of a contested battle, but Alabama, like those true defenses that used to be so good, they're almost obsolete now because they're not as hard hitting. The game has changed. It's not ground and pound. It is air it out, get guys in space. So you have to have smaller, faster guys on defense and on offense. Like that's why the game has changed so much. It's really a thing of the past. I would agree with you, man. It doesn't matter. Like all those historically great defenses that you would watch when the game was just a ground and pound kind of, and then throw second type of offense.
Yeah,
those defenses are not shut down defenses anymore.
Right.
Like we were in a shootout with Alabama last year. That was like the gold standard for defenses from like 2007 to really for a longest time. So really since Coach Saban's tenure there, that was the gold standard for defensive play. So the game has changed so much, man. I think if you have a talented offense, it doesn't matter how good that defense is. The offense is going to find rhythm. They're going to find some sort of success. And Coach Lee says that. He's been very open. It's like these offenses will find some sort of rhythm, but it's our job to cap our losses if we fall on our heels, and it's our job to throw a punch again, step back in the fire, and cut our losses and stop the defense. I mean, stop the offense for where they are now. Because all these offenses are so good these days.
Yeah, Justin, I think this is a good point. He says, I feel like elite pass defense is more so elite pass rush. And especially now, I agree with that. And Vandy has had that for the most part this season. They have had pretty elite, pass rush. And that, look, it's hard to, if you take away the pass rush, you could have elite cover corners. If they're covering for 7-10 seconds, they're going to, at one point in time, get beat. Right. So,
but if that quarterback only has 3 seconds to get the ball out, well, all we got to do is play, lock guys up for about 3 or 4 seconds. And
exactly.
It's either a scramble drill, he's forced the ball, or we've got a sack.
Right. So,
that's where it comes down to.
Yeah. If anything, Joe, I think an adjustment this week, and Clark knows this, and I'm sure, Coach Gregory does as well, is just simply get more pressure. Right. And I thought Utah State was ready to play, Joe. Especially
they came out playing. They came out swinging. They were ready to play, and they were very poised.
Yeah, they were poised.
Kind of back and forth for a while, but they, I'll hand it to them. They stayed in the game. They found ways to stay in the game.
Yeah, and they were physical. I thought they brought their hard hat and lunch pail and were ready to go.
Well, I didn't. They started running a couple. Did you remember that play where they scored a touchdown where they ran a pick and the refs didn't see it and took out 3 of our DBs?
Oh, are you talking? You're not talking about the one where Rinaldi was in coverage on the running back?
It was in the going north.
Okay.
Into the end zone, and we were on defense. And Utah State runs a pick, and it looked like it was a wheel with the running back.
Yeah, that was Miles Davis, and Rinaldi got kind of caught on the running back. I mean, he was going to be defending the running back anyway.
Right.
But they kind of stretched Rinaldi out, and yeah, that was a pick, and that's tough. Anytime you get kind of caught in that situation, if you're Rinaldi, he was. I mean, he was still the running back had a step on him. It's not like he just got toasted.
No, but the receivers on the end, on the perimeter that cleared the way for that play being open took out I saw at least 2 of our DBs get clipped and all fall down. It was a big collision, and I was like, that's fishy,
Yeah. I mean, look,
but the defenses. Go ahead.
The referees. That was not their best performance, and I think this is a college football problem throughout the country. Wake Forest. I don't know if you saw how they lost, Joe, but
I did not actually know.
Yeah, they got totally hosed. I thought Auburn got, pretty badly hosed last week in that substitution rule. That I mean, I guess it's not even technically a rule, but it's been things like this been happening, and we saw the penalty. You mentioned the penalty early. On the punt where Utah State, I don't even know if he actually made contact with that. I think it hit the ground first, and the punter was able to get a little bit of the ball, and it hit his own up man in the back of the leg. But right as that punt was going down, Van Zell Hinton just tackled a guy to the ground. And so
it was there were certainly things on us, and at points and times where you just can't let that happen. Just don't grab them, let them go. Chances are the play's still going to be fine. We're still going to have a shot to break it free, but you don't do that, and especially in a time where you're getting the ball back in great field position. Great field position. It doesn't even matter, about the block punt, but you're getting the ball back regardless. Just that's one of the biggest things. Like when you have a special teams play and you have a penalty, that's where they're almost more costly than any other time in the game because it's a possessional deal.
Yeah, no, and look, there were some penalties that were good calls. There were some that weren't. Another one where I think Isaiah Glass got called for a couple of procedural penalties. I think one of them was holding. I forget what the other one was. But look, they've got to clean things up. But something else that I was thinking about, and Adam mentioned too, he said, I blame the early start for some of the grogginess on defense. Never been a fan of early start times. This was the first morning kickoff for this
Adam,
team.
I'll level with you on that, man. I was never all that big on the early starts. There's something about it, I didn't feel like and I know a lot of guys didn't like the early start. They didn't love the night games, as much because you get out there super late. By the time you actually get home after the game, it's already past 11 at least. And it just makes for a long time frame of, I got to wake up early tomorrow morning, go to the training table, breakfast, the whole day. The next week has already started. Yeah. But if you have a day game, I always liked 2:30 games. Yeah. Game's over by 6:37 or whatever time frame. So you get done in the evening, maybe have dinner with mom and dad or whatever family you've got in town, and hit the hay. So I never loved the early games. I know guys who loved them because they would actually, maybe they were excited about stuff after the game and all that extracurricular activity. But hell, when I was playing, I was just excited to have, my family in town. So if it was an early game, I did get to do that. But the grogginess does come into play sometimes for some guys, and coaches realize that. They know that they find ways to make things interesting and up and alive in the morning for breakfast because the guys are up early and they've been in meetings the evening before till 9 o'clock. So it's a quick turnaround. Sometimes at breakfast they'll be blasting music. At Alabama we didn't blast any music, but at Vandy we found creative ways to get guys up. So I think every college football team sees the challenge with that early kick, and Coach Lee was always very upfront about it. It was like, we need our rest throughout the week. 11 a.m. comes quick, and the visiting team always seems to come out with their they're pissed a little hot when they're playing a team that is bigger than them. Yeah, catch them sleeping.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I thought they did a little bit. I didn't think Vanderbilt wasn't ready to play. I don't think it was that. I just
I
thought
don't think
Utah
so
State.
either.
I thought Utah State was ready to go. I think that's a pretty solid football team, Joe. I could see them winning 7-8 games this year, especially with that offense.
I haven't looked at
But
their schedule too much, but I would agree too, man.
yeah,
They've got a great staff there. They've got some great players. So
yeah.
they can do everything that they want to this season, probably be a bowl team.
Right. And I was going to mention too on this comment from Adam, it doesn't help that Vandy's first 4 games were night games, right? The Charleston Southern night game at home, a lot of excitement for that one, a lot of excitement for Blacksburg, a lot of
Oh, yeah.
excitement in Columbia. And last week again with another night game against Georgia State, you get so amped up and you have that ramp up time, throughout that Saturday. You're watching other games and you're getting whatever work done you got to get done. Whereas opposed to yesterday, it's 11:40. You wake up. What time are they usually waking up for an 11:45 kick, Joe?
Oh, at least. So we'll just go at 11, and we'll
Okay.
that'll be a round number. So if we had an 11 a.m. kick, breakfast is usually the meal is about 4 hours before kickoff.
Okay.
So that was pretty universal of when I was at Alabama versus at Vandy. It was always right around 4 hours before the kickoff was when we would have something to eat. So call it 7 o'clock is the meal. So in this case, probably 7:45 is or 8 o'clock is when they're sitting down having breakfast or brunch, whatever they did. I would assume it's breakfast, but it's also tough because breakfast is now we're getting really, really nitty gritty on things. But breakfast is a really hard meal to put down for a lot of guys because they don't have an appetite in the morning. Now, Vandy is a morning practice team. That's where I think the real leverage comes is they're prepared for that. They practice every day starting at like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or 10, whatever the slate is for that particular day. So they're always going to be up and ready. Like their body's going to be ready to go naturally from their body of work through the season of being a morning team for practice. When I say a morning practice team, teams have 2 options. They're either in the morning or in the afternoon to be with classes. For those of you guys that didn't understand that out there, at Alabama when I was there, it was an afternoon practice team. And by golly, coach was not going to change that. Thursday practice was the same way. It looked the exact same way as it did, 14 years ago or 13, whatever it was. So nothing ever changed over there. But I also really liked morning practice, here at Vandy, one, because it's done for the day, but it's also the guys aren't itching to go to class in the morning.
Yeah,
but they can't get excited about practice, right? Yeah. So you do have a little bit of juice. But yeah, so it's a tough deal in the morning. But like breakfast, you got to find something that's not going to upset your stomach as the first thing that's going into your system, if you know what I mean. So not too much dairy, right? No cereal. I wouldn't recommend that. But you get what I'm saying? Like it's tough time frame because you want to be fueled and ready to go. When you play a night game, you've been fueled the whole day, right? And you've been moving around, and Coach Lee does a great job, and the strength staff does a great job of getting guys moving around. They do a stretch and stride kind of deal in the morning, and so the guys are ready to go. But morning, it's tough because the fueling, the hydration. Sometimes you'll hydrate all you want the night before, and you still feel dehydrated in the morning, and so it's kind of like a catch-up deal. But every time frame within the day brings its own challenges. So it's just something that you're not going to get to control. So you have to go make the most of it.
Right, and basically what I was getting at was 7 a.m. is a lot different than getting up at whatever time they had to get up for the night games previously. But it's just different. And credit Utah State, like I said. But all that being said, Joe, they get down 14-7. They kept battling back, and they ended up leading 31-21 at the half after the field goal from.
That was big.
I did think that was big, and 15 seconds left. Like Vanderbilt from 3-4 years ago, and I actually told Chris Lee this in the booth. They're going to the half. They're going to the locker room saying, "Hey, we don't even really have a, and nothing against you guys, Joe, but this offense is so much more advanced that 15 seconds left. Let's go get a field goal. Let's go get us in field goal range." Just that mindset, if you know what I mean.
100%.
And just it was with ease.
Yeah, no, it's fun to watch, man. Like when you have a team that you are watching every time they go out there, no matter what time frame that you're working with against the clock, you know that you've got an opportunity to get some points on the board with every play, man. It's cool to have that and to get to see that.
Yeah.
So they did a phenomenal job in that situation, and it takes everybody. It takes everybody doing their job to get things going in the right direction and creating momentum. But like I said before, never count the doors out with Diego at quarterback, man. Like he has a phenomenal way of taking the game into his hands and putting Vandy in a great position. Whether that's setting him up for the next play, setting him up for a field goal with only a few seconds left, but he has a unique way of being able to take the game into his hands and make something happen. And that's a mark of a great player, but it's also a mark of a great leader that has a lot of confidence in himself and his teammates. So, like you said, man, it's fun to watch when you got a team like that's going out there, and no matter what the situation is, they're looking to strike. And even last year, they were able to strike, but this year the offense is so much more explosive than last year that, like we've talked about a few times, that they can control the ball and hold it and score if they need to do that. But they can also strike on a dime and going up by 10, 10 at the half, I think it was. That's huge. That's a 2-possession game. One and 2 possession games are very different approaches as a head coach of how are we going to come back from this. 1 possession game, hell, all we got to do is score on the when we get the ball back at the half and we're right back in this thing. You're right there. 2-possession game, well, we got to start rocking and rolling. We got to get some momentum. We got to go get fast. So that being able to convert it to be a 2-possession game at the half, huge for Vandy, down the road there.
And despite some of the defensive concerns we've talked about, you still win by 20. Right, you come out with a 20-point win. You don't cover, but
my buddy lost money on that. We were sitting up there in the stands. It was Ben Bresnahan. So if we want to call, I guess I'll call him out on that. I guess he took me over, and then we were all kind of like worried, just sitting there watching, see if we could keep him out of the end zone. And I don't know how much money he lost, but he ended up, busting it.
Well, I didn't even notice it until after because I'd forgotten. I knew it was 22.5. But it was a kind of a brutal backdoor cover for some betting gurus. And speaking of, we'll go ahead and hit on this. Vandy is a 12.5-point underdog in Tuscaloosa against Alabama. If you want to throw some money on them, head on over to FanDuel and get that done. But Alan mentions this, Joe, wasn't too worried about Utah State's last 2 touchdowns as we had mostly subs playing, didn't we?
We did.
Yes.
We did. We had a lot of – we basically I was telling Miss Lauren this, but when we were watching up the stands, I was like, well, they're probably going to score because our second team is out there with their starters. Any team is going to probably have some success with that regarding, that's why you see like, never mind. It just doesn't even matter because anybody's 2s against another team starters that are quality starters, they're going to probably find some success. Now, obviously, it's not an excuse for Vandy to lay down or anything like that, but we did have our subs in there. And I thought that was good on Coach Lee's part of, hey, get everybody that we can healthy and out of this game. We've got to go we got to go handle business next week because, obviously there's not much that needs to be said about the upcoming game. It's all kind of written already. So I was pleased to see that the subs got some opportunities. It also gives them some routine plays. So these guys that are subs get more action. Yeah. And they've done it for a few weeks now.
Yes.
These subs have gotten action for a good bit. And that's going to be very important down the road because we all know injuries happen. We all know things happen with, substitutions and packages and stuff like that. And you never know what can happen and what a season can entail. And all of a sudden you're the starter or you're a rotational guy and heck, you're 18-year-old freshman. It happens. It happens. Or you're a guy that hasn't seen the field in 3 years and holy cow, I'm one-on-one with, LSU's receiver. Stuff happens, man. And it's the next man up. So I was really pleased to see that on another weekly basis of getting those guys reps.
Yes, I was just going to say that. We talked a lot about that before the season, that these games against Georgia State, Charleston Southern, Utah State, it's looked exactly how you want them to look in a way, where you get Blaze in there, you get some of the other young defensive players in there. We know about the depth defensively, but yeah, 100%, Joe. I'm glad you hit on that. I want to go back to Diego. Again, I feel like we're talking so much about the defense, and we're talking about the defense maybe in a little bit more negative light today, but what he was able to do was pretty impressive. He passed Chris Nixon with his 31st career passing touchdown, and he's now tied for 7th all time with Bill Wade, who I'm not even sure. I know we probably have some older people in the chat. I couldn't even tell you when he played exactly at Vanderbilt. I do remember hearing that name, but he also tied Vandy's single game passing touchdown record with 5 against Utah State. He tied Johnny McCrary back in 2014, Jay Cutler, and Bill Wade against Auburn. Back in 1950. Okay, so there it is. So long time ago.
A few years ago.
Yeah, but we had a Mike Wright mention, Joe. He became the second Vandy quarterback, Pavia did, since 96 to collect 6+ touchdowns in a game. He joins Mike Wright, who had 4 passing touchdowns and 2 rushing touchdowns against Elon back in 2022. So, and his numbers, Joe, are like, I was looking at these and I put a tweet out about it because I was like, man, pretty incredible through 5 games, 1,211 passing yards, 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. His completion percentage, nearly 75%. I mean, he's
playing near perfect.
Yeah. And I want to mention this. He's not running it as much. 48 carries, 294 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Right.
And that's by design, right, man? Yeah. The coaching staff and him have even said, like, we need to limit the amount of shots that he takes, because you saw how that can really hurt our ability to strike against the defense when Diego is not healthy. You saw that last year. Coaches acknowledged it. He acknowledged it a little bit. So I love the fact that he's being more, he's protecting himself a little bit more, whether that's coming from the top down or he's being smarter about giving the ball a little bit more and not trying to make something happen that isn't there. But you know what? He's playing on such a high level, and his first game, he was 80% completion, super efficient. And we knew he was going to be tested going forward. And all the kid's done since he stepped on campus, or heck, started in junior college, is prove people wrong. And he's doing that yet again. The people who might have thought that this is just last year was a fluke, that he got lucky, Vandy got lucky. No, obviously not. Starting off 5-0, a tremendous showing every single week. I mean, I don't know any other quarterback in the SEC that's close to him in what he's doing. Now, I'm sure there are. There's plenty of great quarterbacks in the SEC, but there's not any like Diego. There's just very simply put, there's not a guy at the position that plays the way he does. So I expect him to be himself as that competitor that he is and that leader of the team that he is this week. I expect him to just play within himself and not do anything out of the ordinary. But when you've got a guy like that, a cat like that back there that's selfless and just gritty and wants to win at all costs and will do anything to win for his teammates, that's going to rally the troops, man. So I'm excited for this team to go down to Tuscaloosa. Obviously Bama did a nice job on Saturday night with Georgia. It's really hard to tell how good teams are the first handful of weeks of the season. There's just not a whole lot there to kind of base things on. Obviously, you can go off of talent and say, hey, this team is really loaded. They got guys everywhere, but at the same time, they play on discipline. Will they clean that up? Do they let it slide? Stuff like that. So I don't know necessarily how good some teams are. A lot of people thought LSU was or Georgia was this and that, and they might be the best teams in the country, but nobody really knows yet.
Nobody has separated yet.
Nobody has separated. Anybody in the SEC can beat anybody as of right now, just because of the talent level. That's very universal about this year. But I'm really excited for these guys at Vandy on West End to have their shot at someone that is going to give them a quality test.
Right.
For those of the fans out there or critics that said, Virginia Tech wasn't a test. Okay. Yeah, I still don't believe that one. Same thing. They said the same thing with South Carolina. Oh, Sellers got knocked out. Well, they still got, 11 other guys on defense and 10 other guys on offense.
I didn't know Sellers played defense.
No, Sellers is not South Carolina. He is one player on that team, just like anybody else. So they've kind of made excuses of why not Vandy.
Mm-hmm.
Why not?
There's not going to be any after this.
Right, and not to put him in a rifle ranking or anything like that. Josh Pate actually talked about a good bit. Funny story. If you ever want to catch him on a Sunday afternoon, you can catch him at the Y downtown.
Okay.
Yeah, I've run into him a couple times. Cool guy. But anyways, he was a big voucher for Vandy. So I'm in his corner on that one. But I'm excited for these guys, for Vandy to be able to show what they can do and not have any excuse behind of why they shouldn't be getting the recognition that they deserve.
By the way, you talk about the ranking. I forgot to mention Vandy is number 16 overall, so they move up a couple of spots in the AP poll. By the way, College Game Day is headed to Tuscaloosa as well. Forgot to mention that on the top. 2:30 kickoff on ABC. I would assume it's Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit, Joe. I would guess. And every now and then because they'll be there, right? The game day will be there, and it's the best game of the week. I mean, On3 actually puts out. I know one of our competitors. I'm not a stickler on that, but they put out a graphic of the best games every week. It's like top 7-8 games, and Vandy, Alabama was at the top with a picture of Pavia and Ty Simpson as well. Like, this is the game of the week, and it's not the strongest slate, but I think if you're a Vanderbilt fan, you should like that because there's going to be even more eyes on that game. But Joe, you talk about Pavia in this offense, and I do want to hit on a few more things before we dive into Alabama because I do want to dive into that. Vandy has scored 50-plus points in back-to-back games for the first time since 1915. Obviously, 70 last week, 55 yesterday. This offense, and statistically, I saw a tweet. I wish I could pull it up. I didn't bookmark it, but Vandy is top 5 to 10 in most statistical categories on offense. And again, you're 5 weeks into the season, right? I don't care who you've played. This is a good point in the season, Joe, to, for people outside of the Vanderbilt circle to look at this offense and go, okay, they're doing some things, right? I mean, you haven't lost a game, but the way at which they have been so methodical and dominant, they can be methodical, right, Joe? But they can also score in 15 seconds. They can get a field goal range in 15 seconds. So I wanted to throw that out on the offensive side of the ball. Another historical note. And I want to rumble through a few more comments. And thanks everybody. The chat room is loaded right now, so I want to kind of rumble through some of these as well. By the way, Joe, obviously for guys that don't know, played at Alabama, 2-time national champion under Nick Saban. This is not. I say this is why we brought Joe on. This is not specifically why we brought Joe on, but this is a huge reason.
It's for Joe, this week only, apparently.
No, but this is Joe's sort of bag a little bit here this week. And Joe, good luck at work, man. I hopefully you can stay focused enough and Vandy fans everywhere, as you get closer to this game. But Jake says first time in the new stadium, very impressive. Not going to lie, I'm a little worried about the Alabama passing attack. Do you think our DBs can handle the Alabama wide receivers?
Well, Billy, do you?
Well, I was going to toss it to you, Mr. Bulovas. No, look, I think I said it earlier. I think Vandy's DBs are going to be fine. Colby Taylor is as physical as any corner in the country. There's a reason he's on Bruce Feldman's freaks list in the the preseason athletic article. Clark has said that he's one of the more gifted corners he's coached. So I think again that's a guy. Do you throw him on Ryan Williams? Not sure. I would assume you do. I think Colby Taylor was on Ryan Williams last year as well. Joe, I know they switched off a lot. Lackey was on him.
Yeah.
Lackey was on him on that ridiculous catch. I thought Lackey did a fine job on that play in particular. But again, Martell Height, you've got him. Does he play more? How much do you want him to play on offense? They've also got Jeremy Bernard and another receiver. I can't think of his name, but they've got legit receivers, Joe.
Whatever Vandy's going to do, they're going to throw the kitchen sink. And I don't think Bama's going to do the same thing. They're going to game plan really well. But from Vandy's perspective, I would anticipate probably Colby Taylor on Ryan Williams. Obviously, that's the guy that comes to mind as your deep threat and your make something happen guy in tough times. So I would expect him to be on Ryan Williams. But I also think you, as a defensive coordinator and as a head coach, I say, I think they have a lot more confidence in their guys back there to say, hey, if we have to pass, a certain guy or two off the safeties, I still feel comfortable with that guy and my guy in space and going after a ball and making the play. I still feel confident in our DBs. It's a very deep room, and there's a lot of guys who have played a long time. So what does that say? They've had to play against really good players, really good cats that could fly, that could cut on a dime. So for those of the guys out there that are probably worried about that passing attack and Alabama's receivers, there are great receivers all over the SEC. Some of the biggest receivers I've ever seen, came from Ole Miss, South Carolina, all over the place. You name it, Georgia. There's great receivers every place. And the guys that I played with at Alabama, the best receivers I've ever been around, they weren't, DK Metcalfs or anything like that.
Right.
They were phenomenal athletes, and they were extremely dedicated to their craft. Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, all those guys.
Williams.
He came in after me, so I didn't play with him.
Okay.
But Calvin Ridley was there for a year with me. So all these guys, they weren't. You see them walking the hall, and they look like receivers, but not like a DK Metcalf. You had no idea these guys could run a 4.3 and just flat out fly. So I'm not worried about our DBs because they really see great talent as far as speed and cutting ability. Every day in practice, they've already seen it so far this season, and they had to go against it all year last year. All year. So there's great receivers everywhere. Now, obviously, the route concepts are going to be. They're going to test our DBs. They're going to test our linebackers. One of the best ways to test a secondary and your linebacker play in zone and in man-to-man coverage, but is to run mesh routes. So for those of you out there that don't know what that is, that's when it's basically receivers crossing across the field. Sometimes you can have 2 or 3 guys doing it, but what it forces the defense to do is either man up or play their zones extremely efficiently. If it's man-to-man, it's very hard to stay with your guy because you're basically running right at each other. Very hard to do man-to-man coverage. Can it be done? Yes, but it's easier to be done in zone. So if they really need something to happen and really want to test us, throw a couple meshes, throw a post over that would really, there's a lot of things that an offensive coordinator can do to get DB's minds spinning of how they're going to cover certain things. But the biggest thing I want our DBs to do is to play with confidence, to know that they're equipped, they're ready to go. And I think they will. I think this is a really talented and really confident group, and the coaches believe in them. And again, I've always said this, as a player, and you have coaches that believe in you and would run through a brick wall for you as a player. Oh, forget it, man. Done deal, man. You can't get rid of that. That's so special, and that goes a long way for team chemistry and team confidence.
Right. As you're talking about that, I'm getting more and more excited for this coaching matchup. Get your popcorn ready for Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb on the Alabama side against Clark Lee and Steve Gregory. That's going. I mean, the coaching matchup will typically determine the game a lot of times, especially when, these are 2 really good teams, 2 teams with a ton of talent, a lot of depth. The coaching edges, what coaching edges can you find, whether you're Alabama or Vanderbilt, right?
Well, I was going to ask you, Billy, if you're going to think, pose the question out there, what do you think the key to success is from Vandy's perspective this week?
I think
I'll give you mine after.
Okay. I think, look, I'm not worried about Vanderbilt's offense. I may not be worried about Vanderbilt's offense against anybody. I think this is one of the better offenses, and the stats have proven it in the country. So I'm not worried about that. now the pressure will be ramped up. Alabama's got, Tim Keenan, some freaks on defense, so it's going to be tougher. But Vandy's defense has the ability to win this game, and it's on. I'm not saying it's on Steve Gregory, but it's on those pressure packages, those blitz packages to be executed, right? And if you there's a fine line, and you know it, Joe. If you don't, you could be burnt. You could have Ryan Williams escape, or Bernard, or whoever. Jam Miller's a really good running back. I think that if you're talking about a matchup that's going to decide it, it's Vanderbilt's secondary against Bama's skill players. And I say that because I trust Vanderbilt's defensive line. But you're also facing a better Alabama offensive line. I mean, also an Alabama offensive line that has a guy that can catch a screen pass, apparently. So keep an eye on that. I was watching with some friends. We couldn't stop laughing. I was like, you've never seen that before. But Joe, I would say, I think Vandy's D-line will be able to get some pressure, but Simpson is a guy that is mobile, and he can evade pressure and scramble. So I think Vandy and Fontenette, the anchor position, right? Who spies Simpson? I do think you'll need a spy on Simpson most of the time, but I'll say the secondary against Bama's skill players.
Yeah, I would agree too, man. That's obviously going to be a very big focal point this week of, they're going to
discipline. And Marlon, sorry to cut you off, but
Absolutely.
Marlon Sewell mentioned that because look, they didn't play particularly well for most of that first half against Utah State. They were doing a lot of eye candy. Sewell said eye discipline is going to be the biggest thing throughout this week of practice that they need to hone in on. And I just wanted to add to that because Sewell actually said that after the game.
No, anything Marlo says, definitely pay attention to, because he's a soft-spoken guy, but
yeah,
especially if he says that in a media deal or says that to you, in an interview, I would definitely take note of that. But yeah, no, that's exactly right. Alabama's not going to do too much motion and too many smoke and mirror type formations and plays comparatively to what we just saw against Utah State, and heck, even our offense. There's a lot of moving parts and stuff like that. And that's why we use it. It's hard to get guys to play discipline on defense. So I don't see Alabama doing that too much to us, but I do think at the same time, last year when they played us, the way that they had some success when they did have it was, in my opinion, they let their athletes get the ball. Like, simple it down, let our athletes get the ball, let them make something happen, throwing it up to Ryan Williams, which one that tells me they believe in their players and they believe that their guys are going to get them in a position to be successful. But it's also really handcuffing. And they resorted to that because our defense played so sound collectively that they had to resort to going to their go-to guys and basically throwing go balls. Running curls with three guys to the boundary and one guy out in the middle field, just opening things up, just blatantly obvious about what they were trying to do. Is they were trying to get a couple guys the ball. And I mean, it really was the Jalen Milroe and Ryan Williams show when they came to town here. That's what they relied on offense, essentially. Maybe a couple things here and there.
They did not run the ball well. You're right about that.
No, they relied on two guys essentially for offensive spark. Vandy, obviously very different. You got all sorts of guys catching the ball, throwing the ball, running it, scoring, blocking. I mean, hell, you got Diego blocking for your receivers and stuff at times, selfless football. But what that tells me is if Vandy can do that again and they have to resort to going to their go-to guy, Ryan Williams, Ty Simpson's not a runner like Milroe.
Yes.
He's not that type of runner. So you can't exactly just say, hey, if nobody's open, take off and, run somebody over. He's not that type of guy. He's a great quarterback, and he does a really nice job of getting the ball out on time. He reads defenses very quickly. He has a great pre-snap read of the safeties and gets a mental picture of what the play looks like. He's getting, and he's also checking in and out of plays, which is also a good sign of a mature quarterback that they've got over there. But man, I think, if they can force them to have to throw those go balls, I think it's Vandy's in a great position. But I'll level with you on this. I have to see a good pass rush. It's got to start.
Absolutely.
You got to start with that, and then the DBs just keeping things in front of them. because
Right.
I think any team that if they can't get their shots off and they can't go hit that 60-yard bomb when they want to, then they're going to get frustrated. Teams will get frustrated of having to check down.
Yeah.
Now, good teams and good quarterbacks will realize, okay, let's live to fight another day. Let's just get chunk yardage and go down the field. But I think sometimes when you have young players like and even in college football, man, it's hard to talk a guy off the ledge of going for that home run ball. And so if we can take those shots away and maybe force some throws because we get under the skin at Alabama or Alabama's skin from our perspective on defense and they're on offense, I think that's great. But I'd love to see our offense keep trudging away. I think if we're going to make that statement that we want to on Saturday, we have got to play flawless on offense. We have got to get rid of the procedural penalties and play spotless on special teams. This is where those really key plays that we had last week, those penalties, those possessional swingers there, we cannot have that because we're playing at home. That crowd's going to be loud. I will say it doesn't get as loud as some of the other places, but it does get loud. And they're gonna play with their hair on fire because of what we did to them last year. So there's a lot of things that they really pop out in my mind, but at the same time, it's got to be disciplined football, and it's got to be fast and physical. And it doesn't matter if it's offense, defense, or special teams. I want to see these guys have a great game, and it's going to take everybody. But I think anything's possible, and so I get excited with those guys coming out every week, man. Like I said, I would not bet against these guys. I think this past week was the best thing that could have happened for Vanderbilt.
I'm with you. And this
probably
schedule,
one of the best things that could have happened this whole season.
I keep thinking about the schedule and how it lines up. It lines up perfectly, Joe. I mean, look, I say perfectly. It's a tough schedule, but
it's a pretty brutal road schedule, man.
I mean, it is, but the timing of it.
But that's the mark of a great team. If you can go get those road victories. If Vandy goes undefeated this season,
because you learn about your team. You learn most about your team in the SEC. You learn most about your team when you go on the road in this conference, and we saw what they did in Columbia.
Well, yeah, man. I mean, if Vandy finishes the regular season undefeated, they need to have like a documentary on just the sheer amount of grit that it took to do that. Because I mean, one of our schedule, but also where Vandy's come from, and still how many naysayers we had before the season. Now, obviously, that's way down the road, man. Way down the road. Mm-hmm. Be where your feet are. Bama's the opponent this week, but it's so hard to win in the SEC, let alone on the road. And every team that we play on the road is going to be a really great environment, but it's also going to be a really tough one. But this team rises to the occasion, man. That's why I think they're great. They're great guys. They're great people. They're great football players, but they have a way of using that chip on the shoulder to just play even better with the amount of, I guess, pressure that's applied to a game. Right? Mm-hmm. It's so much fun to watch those guys play.
Justin on YouTube, do we have a different offensive approach this year? Last season was ball control, ball control, ball control. This year is more, let's go score 1 million.
Justin, we talked about that a few times.
Yeah.
But I think it's literally really more of a Coach Lee deal, because Billy and I have talked about this a couple of times of, we even touched on it a little bit earlier of, that is our identity as an offense is control the ball as long as possible and score a touchdown, use much time off the clock. But now we're able to do that and, score in the blink of an eye. So I think it just shows how dynamic this offense is. I think in different games that strategy changes, if that makes any sense. I wouldn't necessarily go up there and say, hey, with the team that controls the ball a ton, that obviously will put more pressure on Vanderbilt to score, right? And not take any chances. Like, a long drive, that can be really tough sometimes to sustain. So if there's an opportunity, go toss that touchdown. Let's go
Right.
score and let's go on. Now, Alabama, that's where I think this game plan changes a little bit. They haven't been a really explosive offense this year so far. They've scored a good amount of points, right? They're a good offense, but they haven't put up as much as we have against our opponents. So I think that dictates a little bit of our offensive strategy, but it's very similar to what happened last year. Bama's going to prepare for control the ball, control the ball, control the ball, but they also have to prepare now for shots and explosive plays right after one another. So it's really hard to defend against because you don't know what you're getting. You used to get control of the ball, maybe a little explosive play once or twice down the drive, but it was very, very methodical. Now they have to defend against those same formations of just running pitches, whatever you call it, all the way down the field. But pretty conservative plays, control the ball, get 3-4 yards of play, then gash them for 15 or whatever. But now they're doing that same stuff in the same formations, and they're hitting you for a 40-yard touchdown to Junior Sherrill, and then sure enough, the next time they get up to the plate as an offense, they do something from a similar formation and hit another guy for a huge play. And so the past two plays go for 80 yards or something. Like it's they have so much to prepare for with so many different formations. So if you're a defensive coordinator going up against Vandy's offense, good luck.
Yeah, I think the difference in the approach is the aggression and the confidence. Pavia is improved. He has another year in the offense. You bring in Trey Richardson. You bring in Caleb Barnett, a couple of speed demons. We know about Stowers and some of the other weapons they have. But, Joe, it's just the aggression, right? It's an aggressive ball control offense, right, where they can, like you said, when they have to, and really, I mean, when they want to, right? I would say they didn't have to with 15 seconds left. They easily could have taken a knee and said,
most teams would take a knee, but this is not any other team.
Right, but the confidence and the aggression of their ball control style, and I would even say like clock control, like they control the clock because the clock late in that first half was right about 2.5 minutes left. Well, they score 17 points in that span, so they're controlling the clock.
That's going to be huge this weekend too, man. Is controlling the clock, because for those of you who remember last year, we controlled the entire game by controlling the clock. Now, how do we do that? So this week, I really do believe we have to finish with touchdowns on offense. Field goals will not get the job done with a team like this.
Right.
The weapons that they have, they're going to score. They're going to have a certain amount of success. To that success, that's up to Vandy to stop and kind of be upfront about, hey, if they get in a roll, we got to stop them. So just like Coach Lee says every week, like the offense is going to find some sort of rhythm. It's up to us to stop it. Mm-hmm. We have to score touchdowns on offense, and we have to score. Like obviously, our goal is to score a touchdown on every drive, but we got to finish with touchdowns. We have to limit them to field goals or punts. If we can do those things, I think Vandy wins, and I think it's not even close. But if we do those two things and then we control the clock with it too, that's what Vandy had. That would be my game plan from a very bird's eye view of what I think Vandy needs to focus on for this game. And heck, you've got Coach Lee with so many years of coaching. You've got so many coaches in that building with years and years of experience. And you know what? I know they're going to put together a phenomenal game plan for these guys. They're going to put them exactly in the position that they need to be, and the guys are going to go make the plays because there's those types of kids. They're here to make splash for themselves and for this university. So, I have no doubts about they'll be prepared. It's just about going out and doing it.
Knox Too Tall asked, was Joe on the Alabama team that played Vanderbilt after the infamous Bama your next game?
I was on that team, actually. That was my first year at Alabama. Yeah, so that was 2017. So we actually won the Natty that year.
Walk us through that week, Joe, if you don't mind.
Well, it is funny, man. So that guy, I don't know his name in particular, but one thing about at Alabama, what would happen is every week that we played, say, we're getting ready for LSU. I'm from New Orleans. Went on a bunch of visits to LSU. There are lots of pictures of me out there for an LSU Tiger stuff. And so they would find pictures of all the like players that were there now on their visits and stuff like that and post these pictures everywhere. So,
Mm.
me, little 16, 17-year-old kid, in the LSU locker room with my dad and the coach at the time doing the whole Tiger nonsense stuff. That was all over the place. So you can only imagine what was plastered everywhere when the guy said, Bama, you're next. That was played like a reel, man, a nonstop in the training room. They literally made a video clip of it and just played it on reel, and like almost all the TVs had, maybe every other TV had that going. And so Coach Cochran and his staff did a really good job of making sure like everything was at the forefront that week of that opponent. Like when we played Tennessee, they played nonstop Rocky Top. When we played LSU, it would be nonstop that song that is awful.
Neck.
Yes, you got 5-year-olds singing the words to that.
Yeah.
And
by the way, Ole Miss played that after they beat LSU on Sunday.
So Lauren and I and my mom and dad were at the LSU Vandy game last year, and you got a 5-year-old and her little brother there singing all words to it. And those of you who don't know, that song "Neck" is not exactly the most politically correct lyrical verse.
Kid appropriate either. Yeah.
Oh no, absolutely not. It's very vulgar. We'll just leave it at that. So, anyways, but that was always at the forefront. So anytime we played a team, that was plastered everywhere. I don't know if that's the way it is now. To be honest with you, I don't really know anybody on the team there. Know a couple of GAs that I played with. They're now in the coaching roles, but it's going to be from what I've heard from around Tuscaloosa, like they're really excited for this program. It's been a weird kind of transition, obviously, but Coach DeBoer's won everywhere he's been. Obviously, even in my business, man, there's no way you can guarantee success based off past performance, right? That you can't guarantee that, but he's done a really nice job of everywhere he's been. He's always had a really good track record with each team. So, we'll see how it goes for them. But I think this is all about Vandy. I really do. I think it's all about what Vanderbilt has, what they can control, and going out and doing just that.
Alan, and again, we've hit on this a little bit, but he says you're the inside track here on Bama. It's not a Saban team now, but a lot has changed. So how do you think we realistically stack up to them this Saturday? And I guess, we've talked a lot about it now at this point, and we'll probably wrap up here soon unless, we get a bunch more questions. That's the thing that struck me last year, Joe, that, talent-wise, Alabama probably had more talent last year, and they probably have a little bit more talent this year. But like last year, Vanderbilt had trimmed that gap enough to where they could beat Alabama. And that was the discussion. So now Vandy's at this point now where whether it's Alabama, Tennessee, Texas, LSU, some of the top dogs in the upper echelon of the league, they can hang with and they can beat, right? It's not just hanging with for 2 quarters, right? They can hang with them for 4 quarters. So I guess that's how I would phrase that. Like physically, how does Vandy stack up to Alabama, you think?
Yeah, because obviously last year Vanderbilt's capable of beating anybody, and that was true last year when we beat them, and we were right there in every single game. Last year, we beat the brakes off of everybody we played this year so far. Some quality opponents. Physically, I don't think it's as much of a mismatch as people would say. I think it's actually pretty evenly matched. I think you have talent at every position. That's Vanderbilt and Alabama. There's no starter in the SEC that's a bad player. You understand that really, really well when you walk in that building for the first time as an 18-year-old kid. You're like, these are some dogs here, man. Yeah. Ain't nobody bad on this team. The only bad player would be, if they lined me up at safety or something like that. That'd be a bad coaching call there. Maybe they just thought Joe would hold it down with 15 seconds left and we're up by 60. But I still wouldn't do that, man. So, but everybody who's a starter in this league is a great player. They're smart, they're fast, they're physical. And so I really don't see much of a mismatch. I think this is a pretty. It's going to be a dogfight. There's talent everywhere. Obviously, Coach Lee would be very, very open of saying like, "Hey, this is a talented team. We're a talented team too here at Vanderbilt." And to be quite honest with you, like I said before, I wouldn't bet against Vanderbilt right now. So,
Yeah,
and hell, when's the last time when you had like a handful of guys being in the conversation of being first round picks at Vanderbilt?
a
That's where you're
long
at
time.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And now you have a handful of guys that are in that conversation. So
yeah,
obviously things have changed at Vandy. The talent pool of those guys getting brought in has changed dramatically. But give Coach Lee and Barton Simmons a lot of credit, man. They've done a really nice job. They've done a
yep,
great job of bringing in those guys, man. So I don't think there's a big talent gap. I don't at all. And obviously, if you think there is a talent gap, it didn't matter last year.
yeah,
So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's a full on effort from both teams to win this game. So obviously, game day is going to be there. It's going to be a phenomenal atmosphere. But game day is more for the fans, man. As a player, you don't get to see game day or anything like that. You're in a hotel. You're focused on what you're doing. You're getting fuel, night sleep, the whole 9 yards. All this other stuff that's getting added to the game is just fluff. At the end of the day, it's just fluff. It's for the fan experience, which is great. I think this is phenomenal for Vanderbilt that we're getting game day at a game of ours. I hope in 2 weeks' time it comes back to Nashville
hmm
for the LSU game. Will it? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but I think it'd be really cool.
yeah,
But this is all great stuff. But I as a player, you don't get to see it, so it doesn't matter. It's just there. And I hope the
yeah.
guys don't get too ahead on their skis there. I don't think they will. They're really solid guys. They have their minds in the right places. So great environment, great experience. It's going to be a fun game on Saturday for these guys.
It's going to be fun. And 2008, to answer your question, Jake, was the last time Vandy was involved in a college game day game. That was in Nashville.
Yeah, I remember
Vanderbilt
seeing a couple things
beat
about
Auburn.
that this week or
Yeah,
yesterday.
yeah.
When did they announce it? Was it today or yesterday?
They announced it today, actually.
I
And
saw it on
it's
Twitter. So yeah, I guess it was this morning or early afternoon. I
yeah,
saw it.
yeah. And you're right about it, Joe. Like, I will say this: like the attention and the interviews leading up to this game. Um, we're all humans, right? It's different when you play a Georgia State or a Utah State, obviously, as opposed to walking into Tuscaloosa with the game of the week, right? So I am interested, and I'm with you that this team they are
One thing
mentally,
that's
yeah, they're
one thing.
mentally they are fine, but I'm interested in that aspect of this. It's a huge game, and does what starts to creep in, if anything, right? Because like I said, we are all humans.
It's tough.
Um,
It's
but
really
it's
tough.
but it's also it's just going to be so cool.
It
I mean,
is.
you're
And
waking
these
up.
guys have done a really nice job of not getting ahead of themselves this whole season because they've had games that everybody's going to be eyeing, right? The Bama game, the LSU game, the Tennessee game at the end of the year. They're good. Everybody's got these circled on the calendar as great games and great tests for Vanderbilt. But the only reason they're great games still is because Vanderbilt went and handled business and basically, proved people wrong yet again and showed them that they deserve to be in this conversation, the playoff conversation, the playoff national championship conversation. And the only reason these games are still being talked about and excited about is because Vanderbilt has delivered when very few people did believe that. And
Yeah,
and the people who have been with Vandy from the start, man, it's so cool to see, so fun to see.
yeah.
And I've said that plenty of times on this deal, but one thing I might add in the away locker room at Alabama, they used the old locker room in the stadium for the home team. So when I was playing there, it was all a bunch of old wooden lockers, like oak stained,
Mm,
very nice, very old school lockers. They moved all of those to the visiting locker room. So, and that's in
mm.
the south end zone. So when I played there, when I was playing for Vandy and we went back to Alabama, I saw that and I was like, holy cow, I got to go find my locker. see if I can find it in here. So I kind of like surged around after the game trying to find everything and trying to find my locker. I don't know if they took all the plates off, obviously.
Yeah.
However, they did not take the plates off of the All Americans and All SEC players. So I had I had a couple guys on my locker who were like All Americans from way back when. But I thought that was really neat. You got to see the gold plate of every uh, All American, All SEC player. Yeah, so it was really cool. But all those lockers are now in the south end zone, so now you get to have that old school feel, I guess. Yeah. But neat little tidbit to the stadium that probably nobody talks about or knows.
That is cool, and I'll probably shoot your call.
So somebody this week for Vanderbilt is going to have, I say in theory, but might have Joe Namath's locker, essentially. That's what I'm saying.
So those lockers were there those were the lockers that y'all had forever.
Yes.
Okay. I
didn't realize that's why I set it up. That's why I brought it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, it's actually really neat. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'll be going. And so I've never been to Tuscaloosa. Like I've been to Birmingham, and I've always like, man, how do you get to Tuscaloosa? And I've seen the signs, but
it's tough to get to, man. It's about 45 minutes west of Birmingham.
Right.
Not much else over there, man. There's Tuscaloosa, and that's kind of it.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Joe, and we're going for a while here, so feel free to tell me to end this thing. But
I don't know how many people are gonna watch this all the way through, man. When they realize it's about an hour and a half long, like, man, I ain't got time for this one. We'll just catch the game on Saturday.
We'll split it up. But for Vandy fans, where do they have to go before the game that are in town?
Oh man, so you can't go wrong. There's plenty of places to go. Man, they've got there's places right by the stadium, and you'll definitely get the old kind of South college feels because you've got the fraternity houses right there, right by the stadium, and you got sorority row right to the left of it, running alongside north to south of the stadium. So you definitely get that, and then the quads, just catty corner or adjacent to the stadium too. So like it's a very much a college setting, right? You've got all the cool things right then and there. I would encourage you to take a walk around campus. They do a really good job of keeping up the campus. It's really pretty. They take a lot of pride in their buildings, and so they do a really nice job of keeping the campus up. So take a stroll around campus. I think you'd be grateful that you did. But before the game, if you're trying to get a bite to eat, good luck, man. Good luck. If you're trying to get a couple of drinks in your system, good luck.
Is it the Yellowhammer? Is that what they call it?
Yeah. So you've got what's called a Yellowhammer. I have no idea what the heck's in it, but people sure seem to love them. But you can get those at a place called Galette's. It's right by the stadium. You can't miss it. Yeah. But one thing that Vandy fans are not going to like is if you go to any of those bars or really even a restaurant that has a bar scene in it, you have to have a wristband or something like that. But you also have to pay cover. That's no fun because heck, you're trying to take mom and dad out to dinner one night, and you're like, oh, that's actually, we're trying to get a burger or something like that, and we've got a bar out back, so that's $60 a person. I'm like, are you kidding me? We're grabbing a table trying to get a bite to eat. So that beforehand or afterhand, whatever you guys are doing, there's plenty of options. It just hits the wallet a little tougher, a little harder sometimes, but they've got Buffalo Phil's. That's a really good one. That's a staple. PJ, long walk from Embassy Suites. But downtown, you've got plenty of stuff over there. It's a cool little downtown, small town Southern deal. You get a lot of stuff to do there. Great shopping. I'm sure if you're a father and you've got some daughters, they'll want to go run to the boutiques and stuff. Miss Lauren is itching to let me take her down there so she can run into those boutiques and stuff. I don't know what the heck I'll do, but just sit outside on the park bench. Like that's usually what I do. But anyways,
Forrest Gump.
Yeah, just be waiting for days, man. But there's plenty of stuff to do. So like, there's bars and restaurants all along, right next to the stadium, walking distance. Uh, it's gonna be tough. On game day,
Yeah.
the whole town shuts down, and luckily enough, I wasn't having to drive around on game day. Man, I
Right.
was bused to the stadium. I was always playing. So,
Hmm.
but just have a plan. It's going to be very busy. It's a great environment, but you know, it can get a little chaotic. So have a plan beforehand. Kind of just stick to that because there's going to be a ton of people all around, and but it'll be a great environment. So I'm
Yeah.
excited for any Vandy fans going down. I hope you have a great time. It's a great place to have a game. So enjoy every second.
Yeah. And look, this is a big game for not just because Alabama is a part of it. This is not your grandfather's Vanderbilt. Like this is Vanderbilt is as much a part of the narrative around this game as Alabama is. Right? It would not college game day would not be coming to town if this was Vanderbilt from, no offense, Joe, 3, 4, or 5 years ago. I mean, you can name any Vanderbilt. Like go back in the annals of history. Like Vanderbilt, I mean, they beat Alabama for the first time since 1982 last year. So again, huge game. We'll have all the coverage this week. We just went for almost an hour and a half. But Joe, I want to wrap it up with your theme of the week, man, like we always try to do, and everything you got going on with Bulovas Wealth Management, and toss it to you before we wrap this baby up.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. So, one thing that's gotten to be really important in my line of work, and obviously something that's very important in which we talk about financial planning and our investments. We want to be very, very tax efficient. So, obviously, the past several decades and for a long time, mutual funds have been a phenomenal way to grow your wealth and to do so in a diversified fashion. Right now, those have been great for a long, long time. Once you get to a certain point in wealth, and that could be your overall portfolio from IRAs to taxable accounts, individual portfolios, you name it. Once you get to a certain point, that's no longer sufficient. We want to have more control over the portfolio so that way we can put you in the best position possible for when the market uprips, but also when the market goes down. We want to have you in a good position. So active management is extremely important. And if there are investors out there that like to be a little bit more passive, I would highly encourage you to look into an ETF. So a lot of these mutual funds have ETF clones now. And to be quite honest with you, mutual funds are probably going to be a thing of the past here soon. Why? Because mutual funds produce capital gains. So every year you owe taxes on your capital gains. ETFs, you do not. So you don't receive capital gains tax or any sort of liability there, but you also get the same diversification as the mutual fund. So a lot of people out there may be very have had experience of using American funds or familiar with them. Now they're owned by Capital Group, and Capital Group has those same mutual funds, the same exact holdings, the same exact managers with the same company, but in ETF form. And sometimes it's even at a cheaper price, so at a lesser expense ratio. But American funds have been one of the staples for your growth-minded investors for a very long time. But you also experience capital gains every year. In ETFs, you do not. So if you have any questions about that, from an active management standpoint, how one to beat your benchmark, but also do so in a way that it's a much more easy ride and less volatile. Happy to have a conversation about you because it's extremely important, especially like we've talked about before. We've been riding on all-time highs for quite some time. We want to be very cautious as far as how susceptible we are if the market were to downturn. And so rebalancing is a very big point that I'm making right now. But also, if you have mutual funds and want to take the next step in your wealth management and put you in a better position now and down the road, happy to have those conversations and walk you through why we recommend certain things for certain situations. Because at the end of the day, our job is to do the very best work for you to put you in a better position now and down the road and get you where you need to be, when you want to be there. So that's our goal for you. That's why we are in the business we are in, to serve you. So please, if you have any questions regarding that, I'm happy to point you in the right direction.
How about it? That's the best rundown we've had so far, and I think that's the best podcast we've had so far here on Star V Sundays. Joe, can't thank you enough, my man. Looking forward to this game.
Man, it's gonna be a fun weekend, man. We got the one we've been waiting for.
Oh yeah. Joe, we're gonna have a fired up Joe Bulovas on Saturday, and some fired up Vandy fans. And again, keep an eye on our coverage. Joe, I don't think this is the last time I want to talk to you this week, so I may be hitting you up again a little bit later. But we'll have a good pregame show and all kinds of coverage leading up for you guys. But again, thank you to everybody for coming in here, and again, thanks to Joe, obviously with a sponsorship with Bulovas Wealth Management. Head on over to that website, Raymond James /Bulovas Wealth Management, for all the information. But for Joe Bulovas, I'm Billy Derrick. That'll do it for another episode of Star V Sundays with Joe Bulovas.